The good times never last. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the official EggFooty tipping competition round 10 predictions. Now, we had a very interesting round for round 9. A lot of upsets, a lot of floggings, a lot of disappointments. One very, very infuriating first half from my footy club. In any case, unfortunately, as we have a look through my tips from last week, I didn't do as well as the previous weeks. Instead of getting 8 and 9, I dropped back down to 6, which sucks, but you know, it's only a tipping competition, who cares? I think I jinxed myself last week by stating that Richmond beating Geelong would be very, very funny. They ended up defying the match fixing and upsetting Geelong by 30 points, mind you. So that was interesting. Sydney disappointed me again. I don't know why. I still have any faith in them whatsoever, but we'll get to that later. My state-of-the-art simulation didn't work in AFL 23. Western Bulldogs actually ended up winning against Carlton, which sucks. I'm going to be tearing them a new arsehole in my video tomorrow night. Don't you worry about that. Let's have a look at our top 10 now. We've got a few new faces, a few people starting to cement themselves as contenders. Will Studi be the best, better than all the rest? Only time will tell. As for me, because of my subpar week of tipping, I've dropped back down to 122. Still not as bad as I was, but still far from ideal. Hopefully I can bounce back this week as we go through my round 10 predictions. Right off the bat, Friday night footy at Adelaide Oval, we've got Port Adelaide taking on Melbourne. Now, both these teams had very good wins over the weekend. Port Adelaide flogged North Melbourne, much to Kane Corn's delight. Melbourne thrashed Hawthorn convincingly, and I actually had trouble with this one. I think it's going to be closer than many people think. Both these teams are doing good, and you know, last year was pretty embarrassing for Port Adelaide when they faced off against Melbourne, but that's a different side to the side that's running around in the top 8, in the top 4, mind you, this year. I'm going to go ahead and back Melbourne to get up against Port Adelaide, but it's going to be closer than people think. I think by about 10 points, maybe even single digits. I think it's going to be a good game. Saturday Arvo at Marvel Stadium, we've got North Melbourne taking on Sydney. Now, I know I just said like a couple minutes ago that I shouldn't have any faith in Sydney whatsoever, but come on bro, they are versing North Melbourne. They have to win this game. My god, I'm gonna back them one more time just for the sake of common sense, but if they lose this game against North Melbourne, I'm never tipping them ever again for this entire season of football. So the pressure is on Horse and Buddy Franklin to not do stupid shit in the full forward 5 meters from goal. You know, North Melbourne, they've shown signs of good footy over the last couple of weeks. They were in the fight against Port Adelaide for a while, and then they just ran away with it in the end. They'll take it to Sydney, but I hope Sydney can get over the line against North. Meanwhile, at Mars Stadium, we've got Western Bulldogs taking on Adelaide. Now, 72% of people on the website reckon the Bulldogs are going to get up, but I disagree. I think it's going to be Adelaide coming home with the Chockies, and the reason I say that is just on form. Like, the scoreline made it look better than it actually was for Bulldogs, I think. Carlton had heaps of chances in the fourth quarter to get back in the contest and maybe even steal a win, but they couldn't capitalise, and the Bulldogs ended up winning. Meanwhile, Adelaide, they absolutely discombobulated the St Kilda Saints at home, which nobody saw coming except for me. And you know, last year was a great contest in Ballarat with these two teams. Adelaide getting up by a single point in the last second. I'm really looking forward to this game. I think it's going to be a cracking contest, and I think when it's all said and done, I've got the Adelaide Crom getting up against the Bulldogs, maybe by about 5 points, something close. Meanwhile, Saturday afternoon footy at Optus Stadium, we've got Fremantle taking on Geelong. Now, Fremantle had a terrific win against Sydney on the weekend. Geelong had a pretty bad loss against Richmond. They had no business losing that. Richmond ended up defying the match fixing. And you know, there's a lot in Fremantle's favour. They had a win last week. They're on a high. It's at home. It's going to be a big road trip for Geelong. But I still think I'm going to back the Cats in to get up against Fremantle. I don't think Chris Scott is going to stand for what happened last week, and I think they'll be looking to bounce back against Fremantle. And given how Freo have performed overall this year, I still think they're a long way from where they should be. and I think Geelong is going to take advantage of that and get up against Fremantle. Now, the main event of round 10, the Q Clash at the Gabba. We've got my Lions taking on my Gold Coast Suns for the prestigious Marcus Ashcroft medal. 98% of people on the website reckon Brisbane's going to get up, and I have to agree with them. I have no choice. It's my football team. You know the rule by now. Silly one-eyed rules aside, I think Brisbane will have a pretty good night. It'll still be close. Close enough where Gold Coast aren't embarrassed, but you know, we played some of the worst football that I've ever seen us play last week against the Bombers, and we still won by about 40 points. So if we can do that against Essendon, a team who beat Melbourne, lest we forget, by about 30 points, I think we should have no problem dealing with the Gold Coast Suns, regardless of what team shows up on the weekend. Gold Coast are a good team. They're coming good. It'll be an interesting contest. The second Q Clash last year was pretty good. Gold Coast were well in it up until the end, so it's going to be interesting, but I still think Brisbane are going to get up against Gold Coast. Meanwhile, at the MCG, we've got a match that I can't imagine anyone's going to be actually watching because they'll all be watching the Q Clash. We've got Essendon taking on Richmond, and now Essendon had a pretty bad week last week. Joe Danaher kicked 6 goals on them. They'll be shell-shocked from that. Richmond coming off a terrific win against Gold Coast. I think I'm going to have to back in the Tigers to get up against the Bombers. I think we're going to see a bit of a resurgence from Richmond over the rest of the season. Maybe even pushing for a top 8 spot. They're starting to come good, I think. The team that got beaten by Gold Coast a couple weeks ago and the team that beat Geelong last week are two completely different teams, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what Damien Hardwick can salvage from this season and if they'll be able to get into the finals, all things considered. But before they get there, they're going to have to beat Essendon, and I think they'll be able to do that comfortably. Sunday afternoon at University of Tasmania Stadium, we've got Hawthorn taking on West Coast Eagles, and Jesus Christ, that is going to be a shit game. Now, West Coast Eagles, they have more injuries than you can shake a stick at, and I think I'm still going to back Hawthorn to get up against West Coast, but Jesus Christ, that's going to be a rough game to watch. My heart goes out to the supporters of Hawthorn and West Coast. That's going to be rough, but Hawthorn supporters, you should find solace in knowing that you'll probably get the W against West Coast, even though it would be very, very funny if West Coast got up. Sunday arvo at the MCG, we've got Carlton taking on Collingwood. That should be a pretty good contest, I think. The Carlton forward line last week did everything they could to give Michael Voss a stress-related aneurysm in the coach's box, but he managed to make it out alive, and he'll live to coach another day. Collingwood coming off a really good win against GWS. It'll be another close contest like the last couple of games, but I still think Collingwood are going to get up against Carlton by about, it'll be single digits, I think. It'll be about 4-3 points, something like that. It'll be a good game though. I'm really looking forward to it. It should be in a better time slot. Finally, at Giant Stadium, we've got GWS taking on the Rampaging Saints. We got both these teams coming off pretty bad losses last week. They'll both be looking to respond in some way. St Kilda, I reckon they'll get up by about 20 points or so. GWS, they're showing good signs against some good teams, but I think St Kilda they'll hopefully find some form against GWS for their sake. I can't imagine how shit it would be for the St Kilda fan base if they were to have another good start to the year and then fall out of finals gradually and painfully and slowly without a damn thing they can do about it. But I don't think that's going to happen again this year. I hope not anyway. And I think they'll be able to get back on track with a win against the GWS Giants. And there you have it. Hopefully the footy played this week is going to be a bit better than last week. What are your tips? Who do you think's going to win? Who do you think will lose? Will there be any upsets? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to get amongst the channel membership options as well. If you get tier 2, you get access to an exclusive tier 2 and tier 3 exclusive Discord channel in my server, so make sure you get amongst that. Big shout out to Sharksray and Big Mac Jon, our absolute legend tiers. I greatly appreciate your support, and I'll see you tomorrow for the round 9 review.